Larry tried to kill me.
Yeah. I was so thoroughly disgusted.
I mean, think about it. Why does it make you special to do what you do?
Packers jumping around. They rush 4. Plenty of time for John. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run inside the 10. Head first. He dives off the 5-yard line. My goodness.
Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, and it's still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line.
There's also Brian Clady and Ron Miller. Third and long 3. Going deep. Oh, and he's got Thomas. Goodbye. Touchdown.
Here we go. First snap of the overtime. The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him 3 to the 30. To the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on the New England. They win it on the first play of overtime.
And welcome to the show. My name is Mundungus Creevy, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Glenn Hauser, Mr. Boggins, and Mr. Cameron Parker. And you are currently tuned into the 5280 podcast. Again, I can't. Why?
Podcast?
Every 5280 podcast.
You know,
on the MHRT Networks. No. We are a fan-led, Broncos-based podcast. Got it. Filling you in on all things Denver. I'm taking podcast out of the intro. I'm not going to say it.
You know what you would think after,
I
was going to say, you'd think after all these times of doing podcasts over the years that it actually would be ingrained in your brain to actually say podcast.
I'm just going to call it a show. Like, welcome to the 5280 show.
I mean, when you have 17 kids, how many brain cells do you really have left? You know what I mean?
17.
Yeah. So there's
one per kid.
One per kid. That's about all I can do. So how's everybody else doing today?
Gearing up for Thursday, man.
Yeah. I forgot it was Tuesday already, and I'm like, oh, we get another Broncos game. Let's hope we do good.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so obviously the big news coming out of Broncos country is Javonte Williams gone for the season. Looks like he tore his ACL, LCL, and PLC, which is like the 3 big stuff in your knee. So basically, he tore his knee. He's done for the year, and that's going to be one of those injuries that's going to take a while. Not saying that he won't be back to normal. I hope he is. Pray for speedy recovery and safe healing. I hope he comes back the same or better than he was. I hope.
Yeah, I really don't think he's going to be, I hate to say it, but probably like maybe end of like next season, maybe, if that. It's going to be a long recovery, and especially the running back position, which is so demanding on one's knees. That's just like, that's a lot. It's a lot for sure.
So Marcus, you think it's going to be the balance of this season and almost all of next?
I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, how many times does someone take about a year to get over an ACL, right, and then they come back and they're still not, like Cortland wasn't 100% when he played his year right after. And with this, where you tear it even more, and being in the running back position, you're
right.
You would have to take it very slow. I know Javonte won't want to. Hopefully he listens to the coaches, but I really wouldn't be surprised if it gets pushed quite a bit into next year, unfortunately.
Wow.
Yeah, and you really do kind of feel for him because my biggest fear for Javonte is you never want an injury like this to change your play style. And that's like one of the biggest things for me is you never really want something like that to change you. And sometimes like the way it is and the way that injury happened, it sort of forces you to change the style of everything that you had. And that requires, learning new habits, like learning new ways to run the football. And so like, that's just things that, for what Boggin said, like if it's going to take, say, this season and next for you to finally get to where you need to, that's probably what it's going to take, to get those habits regrained, into everything as potentially a new running back in essence. Thankfully, this is maybe a good thing, but, thankfully the Broncos have had players on their roster who have had obviously not to the extent of like the full on, injury that Javonte sustained, but to everything that they sustained, there's at least some advisory people there like KJ who recently just had it and recovered, to where he is. But he has some people there that can kind of help him walk through it. And we all know, even with the knee too, there's a fantastic guy over there in DTC that he can go visit, in friend of the pod, Mario Batanzi.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things that happened right after the Javonte injury was us trying to figure out who's going to step up in his place. Because, I mean, you had Boone with some drop passes. You had Melvin Gordon with that big fumble that they returned for a touchdown, which is what I think his 5th fumble this season.
Yeah, like 10, but that was 10 minutes before the injury to Javonte. So it was.
What I'm saying is, after the injury, like you have all this stuff that happened afterwards. It's like, well, who's going to step up into Javante's place? Because I mean, you've got Boone who's struggling with blocking and with catching the ball. You've got Gordon who's struggling. I think probably mentally struggling to hold on to the ball. So do we bring a Zigbo up? Do we go sign someone? And obviously we got Latavius Murray. We signed him off the practice squad of the Saints. Does he come in to the practice squad and we bring up a Zigbo? Do we leave a Zigbo down and Murray's on? Do we bring them both up? Do we know what we're doing at running back yet?
I would not expect Murray to play on Thursday night. That's just, I mean, I tweeted him myself, but it was just like, I cannot see him going from playing in London, to then playing on Thursday night football. I would at least imagine, even though that they signed Murray, which, by the way, the nice little tidbit today that said that the Saints actually tried to elevate him to the 53-man roster, and because of familiarity with George Payton and everything, Murray went and chose to sign with the Denver Broncos. And so that was a nice little fun little tidbit there. But yeah, I would imagine that he might be he might be inactive on Thursday, but I would imagine that they're going to call up Devine Zigbo and you're going to have a Mike Boone and a Zigbo showing, for that Thursday night game. But I mean, I would imagine too, for the foreseeable future, I'm not someone who can, definitively look into the future, but this also sort of screams, maybe the end of Melvin Gordon potentially, depending on what happens with Murray the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see between Ozigbo and Murray. I think that's really going to be the kind of like teetering point there. Whoever performs better is going to get more reps. Not this week. I agree with Cameron as far as Murray not. I doubt he's going to be active for this game. I don't think we're quite that desperate yet, but I do see Melvin being RB1. I do see Boone being RB2, and then the other two kind of depending on performance, RB3 throughout the season. But I mean, Mike Boone could also be there as far as like I don't know as well. Like if he continues, like he's a solid running back, but if he continues with those drops, those are huge. I hate it when people say this. but like you have to catch him. You like that's in that predicament where you have an opportunity to be the RB2 now. Javonte's down. You have to take those opportunities to really show out, along with just catching the football in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of the.
I was going to say after Bogdan's comments, if we don't get an Arby's sponsorship, I don't.
We're open, Arby's.
I would love that.
We have the meats. I mean,
that's right.
God. We can't say podcast, but we got the meat. So
I got the
priority.
Priority. Priority. So I'm trying to figure out how the running back depth chart is going to shape out. Because I mean, you look at the game we had on Sunday, and Mike Boone touched the ball before Melvin Gordon did. So, I mean, but I mean, is that like some lost trust with the coaching staff with the fumbles?
That was go get your crap together. That's what that was. So, it was like go because he was very emotional after that. He was like sitting on the bench, head between his hands, and people were coming over trying to console him and stuff like that. Like he was pretty checked out after right after that moment. So I am not surprised at all that they were just like, Boone, get in there, you do your thing. I like how the announcers didn't really acknowledge that Gordon did come back in at certain points. It was really funny because they kept saying Boone is like, oh, there's Boone again. It's like that wasn't, but he still played, but he was definitely not in his right mind after that. He really needs to do like a Javonte thing where Javonte just kind of like it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the Chiefs the other day. Against the Bucks. I would just watch him run. I don't know if he's really had fumbling issues, but he was straight up double grasping that ball when he's running. Like he's like running down the field. Like you'd think this was where you'd open up. There was no one around him. You'd think he'd be up. He's just like, it's like, all right, well, you're gonna hold on to that ball, so that's great. That's
almost
what he needs to do.
Almost like Pee Wee football. You're seeing some
exactly.
It's just like
he's running an organ into the operation room.
Yeah, or the ball's like bigger than his torso. He's just
but you do feel for him, and I think I know it's been a tumultuous first handful of games for Hackett and that staff, but you give him credit, Hackett, for sticking up for Melvin Gordon and showing the loyalty that he can for Melvin Gordon to get it right, to make sure that he can correct his wrongs, and clearly they still believe in him, and so you definitely give kudos to Hackett on that one. And I gotta say, for Melvin, not to bring back everything that we talked about before, but it was just he's got to cut the fumbles. And I know that we've talked about him as a running back, but if there is truly one thing that will get you off of an NFL roster, or in this case the Denver Broncos roster, you cannot fumble the ball in those situations. And I know that there were other factors within that game, but if you could pinpoint, say, one specific moment where everything snowballed for that game, it was that fumble, unfortunately, and more often than not, sometimes even in the past when, Locke was quarterback, Bridgewater was quarterback, when some of those other people were quarterback, it was actually those moments when Gordon fumbled. I believe Andrew Mason had a tweet when that fumble happened that said that Gordon has had 3 fumble recoveries for a touchdown in like a span of 12 games or something absolutely ridiculous. Like it was a ridiculous. Yeah.
I don't think we should celebrate Hackett quite yet as far as like supporting Gordon, because who knows what Monday would have looked like had Javonte not been injured, right? So I mean, he's left with, all right, my tandem running back who's dropping the ball left and right, and I was a big fan of this signing. I supported Melvin all along, but this Cam said it right, right there. I mean, this game completely turned on that play. We were driving down the field. It was a tie ball game, and it was an absolute disastrous moment. You know, we have our starting running back crying in a press conference, and why they put him out there. Actually, I'm not quite sure why he would be out there, but I mean, you know, they would have dumped him, in my opinion, had Javonte not been hurt.
And actually, kudos to your continuing that, Glenn. Kudos to Melvin, even if he didn't want to. Kudos to Melvin for actually facing the music. I know he didn't, finish, because he walked off. But really, kudos to him. And you just feel at that particular point. I know Broncos country has all those emotions that were, reining in at that particular moment, and I understand, those emotions and how frustrating it is, but. At that particular moment, we were all Melvin Gordon fans. We were all Melvin Gordon fans at that particular moment because you felt for the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's kind of back it up to the Raiders game, even though I don't want to. We do need to talk about it a little bit.
We had another injury too.
And yeah, we did. Randy Gregory came out with a knee injury. He's out 6 weeks, correct? At least
at the most in air quotes.
Okay. His wasn't that serious. No, they were worried about the ACL, but there wasn't any damage. So it looks like we'll get him back.
By the way, Florio's tweet was the worst with that.
Why? What did Florio say?
Oh, he just basically, the way he worded it was almost like Gregory tore his ACL, but the way he worded it was just like, at the very end, it was just like, oh, and Gregory's knee is intact. His ACL is intact. Like, thank you for freaking me out in the first few days of October.
Oh, Florio.
So I'd say 3 to 6 weeks, somewhere in there.
I would expect the worst.
With it being Randy, he'll be good to go Thursday.
Short term IR probably. Stat like length. So
yeah. But yeah, there were some interesting things going on in that Raiders game. Like the first half, the offense looked like it was clicking, like it was good to go. We were getting better, and then we had the second half, and the second half was like the first 3 games. So I'm not exactly sure what was going on there.
Yeah.
Cortland was such a presence in the first half and the second half. I mean, completely ignored. I mean, what's your take on that, guys?
I haven't got to watch the all 22 yet. I don't know if they adjusted, if the defense adjusted for that, which would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I honestly don't know. I just think there was a ton of execution problems. The drop passes again are a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We also couldn't really get the running game going. That was a big problem. And then the turnovers, like that was just, I mean, what do you want? Like, it was just like, it came down to execution again. I think that Hackett's scheme is still solid. Like, there are still plenty of opportunities. I just don't think the team is executing, which is a part of coaching. Like, it's tough to not sit here and criticize Hackett for the first 4 weeks. Like, I don't think it's all on Hackett, but I do think as the coach, you take a lot of the responsibility. And so that's what it's going to be. Like, this is your job. This is what you need to do. You need to ingrain this into your players that they need to just straight up execute. Like, it's ridiculous. That offensive line, Mason Crosby hadn't gotten a sack all year. Not all year. I mean, it's
Max,
but it's Max. Yeah. Hasn't gotten
no sacks. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, did I say Mason?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Max Crosby. Who's Mason Crosby?
The kicker.
Oh,
That's right. Kickers need love too.
That's right. Max Crosby hadn't had a sack all year, and they were absolutely dominating. Like, Bowles was having a real trouble out there. Like, dude, just hugging people. It was just like so many situations where that could be coached into like call that out. Like that can't happen. It just feels like they enjoy the coaches that they have right now, but the coaches don't hold enough weight to really enforce what they like to hold in the players' brains that this is what they need to do. And it's really unfortunate to watch so far, but I still have hope that things will start turning around. You could tell that Russ was starting to mesh a little bit better. Like his stats look a little bit better. There are still some misses out there, but it comes with time. It all comes with time.
Yeah, and it seems like Russell Wilson is not comfortable in the offense quite yet. Like it's getting there, but Tim Jenkins talked about it. He let a video go about the Raiders game, and there were some passes that were just he missed it or he didn't know where he was supposed to go, or I'm not sure, but it just looks like he's not comfortable in the offense yet.
Yeah. And, I think that, we actually did, if you were probably to say this might have been maybe Russ's best game, maybe to this point, it looked like the way that, at one point, maybe even the first half and everything, like they were getting both the weapons involved, right? I mean, like this was the first game under the Sutton and Judy era where they caught a touchdown pass together in the same game. And so, I think you saw glimpses of what this offense could be, and even with what it could be with Russell Wilson. I just think that there were still times where, yes, they took their deep shots, but I felt like they could have been, more creative in taking those deep shots when they needed to, even early in the game. They don't necessarily need to take those deep shots when you're down by a score. When you absolutely need to score. Granted, I know Landon brought up the first and 30, and it was bad. Like it absolutely was bad. But at the same time, and it's one of the reasons why I tweeted out like the video to KJ Hamler. But it was just like I really don't think the last handful of quarterbacks that we had would have converted that drive into a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And that enough is why you should have belief in Russell Wilson and this offense for that matter, that it can get going. Like, and maybe that was the drive. I know that it didn't result in a win, but maybe that is the drive that can kind of catapult things and get things going, on a regular basis and the mojo going. And, and maybe that's just my eternal optimist talking, but hopefully that is something that they can build off of.
The only thing that would have made that drive better would be if KJ had been able to get into the end zone on that.
In stride, yeah.
Why you fall?
I know, but the fact that Russ improvised and got in was big, and just going back to Boggins talking about Garrett a little bit, is the hugging. I really think he saved Russ's life. I mean, he got banged, if he got dinged up or banged up or whatever they referenced, and the fact that he's limited in practice right now. I mean, there could have been more hits made if Garrett hadn't wrapped those guys up. I mean, we need a game where just everything comes together. The line is playing strong. The receivers are not dropping passes. I mean, boom, that last pass. I know it was unlikely that we're going to win that game, but the fact that it went right into his hands on a fourth down and we still had time left. I mean, anything can happen. The Jets proved that against the Browns. It's just hopefully Thursday is the night that all the pieces just fit and, the monkey is off the back of the coaching staff and some of these players as well.
Well, and I was going to say it felt like a really weird game in a sense because like the offense it felt was sort of doing its part, but the defense wasn't. And we had all the confidence in the world that, the defense was going to get it done. And, I've been trying to put a finger on what is going on with the Broncos versus the Raiders lately. And I honestly cannot put my finger on it because it's like, I love the Broncos defensive line. It's a great defensive line, but you can have the best defensive line in the world, but for some weird reason, teams just have your number. Doesn't matter if it's a new coaching staff, doesn't matter if it's just, new players or whatever, but for some reason, or in this case, the players that's always been there, but like for some reason, the last few years, the running game has always tortured Denver. And this is actually, even with Josh McDaniels there now. And so Josh Jacobs was running wild. The tackling was atrocious. by the defense, especially the linebackers. I mean, and, you know, up front, it was just bad. And so there was just miscues all across the board. And, you know, if there was one game where you could truly pinpoint that they missed Justin Simmons bad just for help on the run game, that was one of those games. And, you know, so they really could have used him there. And so it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what was going on. But for some reason, Vegas just has their number when it comes to the running game.
Well, like we talked about how the defense was great at making adjustments in the second half. And like we brought in DJ Jones. We were hoping to get Jewell back. We've got Griffith in the middle, hoping that like that's going to be the answer for defending the run. And then they ran all over us in the first and they ran all over us in the second. Like I'm not understanding, even with Justin Simmons in there, I'm not understanding like how they were able to run. Like where was the breakdown for them to be able to run that easy? Like they just ran all over us.
Josh Jacobs has ran over 100 yards on us. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 of the 6 times we've played Josh Jacobs.
He's basically halfway through 1,000 yards right now,
which is ridiculous because it's Josh Jacobs. Like don't get me wrong. Like Josh Jacobs was a solid running back. I think he still has some stuff to him, but he's not the Josh Jacobs of old. And it's insane. Like it's every time he plays the Broncos, he lights it up if he has more than 20 carries. It's just it's ridiculous. I don't understand what it is about, because we were like so stout against the run, and then it's like Josh Jacobs has this pact with the El Diablo, and he just comes in and just like dominates. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like a pitcher who has a number against a hitter, or like a hitter that has like, you know, good career numbers against like a really good pitcher. Like for instance,
except he has a number against random players that he's never played against,
or like, you know, what's a good Clayton Kershaw, right? Like this is a weird example in the sense like it's the field, but like Clayton Kershaw is considered one of the greatest pitchers of all time, but yet when you go into Coors Field, it's like he's human in Coors Field. Like, you know, he has the most worst ERAs of his career at Coors Field. So like there's just some situations in some places where they just have your number. Like certain player just has your number, and it's just hard to explain.
Yeah, and it wasn't all bad. I mean, D-Rock said it. Shout out to Draymond Jones. He had a good game. You can also say that Surtain had a good game.
Surtain did.
Great game.
If not like a great game. I mean, you got Javonte Adams to 4 catches, 30-something
Didn't allow
yards.
a touchdown. Didn't allow a touchdown. Allow a touchdown for Javonte in the first time all season.
I don't think he didn't even get 60 yards. I don't believe, right?
It's fair to say. Who, Javonte?
Yeah, right.
Javonte got over 100 or had like 100 yards receiving, but it had nothing to do with Surtain. Surtain gave up like 46.
Yeah, so Surtain gave up 4 catches and like 30
and then 50 something to like everybody else, but like a majority of that was on a linebacker. Like they would line him up against in the slot, and then we'd have a linebacker, and we'd be like,
listen,
sorry. And then like a lot of the time, safety would try to come
Mac
down.
Hollins guy.
He's their leading receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Where did he come from? I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's like you look like Davante Adams. Yay, Hunter Renfro's not playing. Who in God's name is Mac Hollins? Where did he come from?
He's the guy that opens up when you have to sell the boat to cover Davante Adams and Darren Waller. So Darren Waller didn't have a ton. I mean, he was. We were doing okay. It was the run that was the real problem, and the third downs. Like it was unfortunate. It was death by inches. Fangio was right the whole time.
Stop.
Oh no.
Well, and we started to see those those penalties in the worst spots. Like they had what, 7, 6 penalties? I mean, it wasn't like 13.
I don't know,
they were
probably
just
probably less than
worst
us, whatever it was. Yeah, probably
to
less
have
than
a
us.
penalty.
Yeah.
That's how you know where we are is that Mike's celebrating 7 penalties, because it could be worse. It could be worse.
Not 13.
And like, doesn't Mac Hollins sound like a Yellowstone character or something like that?
Or like a country singer.
or a type of whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah, enjoy a 15-year-old Mac Hollins. Probably praise that.
I need to copyright that. Hold on a second.
All of a sudden we get whiskey sponsors out of the yin yang.
So I kind of wanted to bring it back to the offensive line because we've been talking about the offensive line for 7 years now. What exactly is the problem? Like, is it all around the offensive line? Is it the right side? Is it the center? Is it coaching? Is it like, what is the problem?
I mean, the right side is obvious. Like right side problem, big time problem. We don't have a right tackle. Like we don't have a right tackle on the on contract after this year either. So right tackle, big problem.
Why is Calvin not getting a chance?
You know, that is a very interesting question. I honestly don't know. Like I don't know if it's just because of the experience there, because he's played it once in his career. That's the thing. And they really feel confident more with Cam Fleming than him. I really don't know. And as far as Billy Turner goes, I would not be surprised if he does not play at all this year, like straight up.
Wow.
So it's really, really interesting there. Expect that to be one of our number one, maybe draft picks. We don't pick until the third round. So,
how about the comparisons to Billy Turner to Jawan James? I'm like, not really the same. Jawan
James actually played
$40 million.
Yeah, but anyways, and then we got right guard Quinn. Hopefully, will come back. Glasgow is, he had a better game, but we do miss minors. I'll say that. Cushenberry has had a better year. Not saying a whole lot. Reisner had a meh. Has been like hit or miss for sure. And then Garrett has been just penalty city again, and it's there is a lot of cleaning up to do. But in the NFL, this offensive line is like something that you could ride with, like straight up. It is. There are definitely worse offensive lines, and it's like hard to say out loud, but it's the truth of the matter. But I do think it will be a big focus in the offseason, especially since you're trying to protect Russell Wilson, who is 33 years old, not as mobile as he used to be. It's just something that you really, really have to invest in, especially because you already locked down all your receivers as far as pay wise. You have your tight ends. You have your running backs. Oh, too soon. Offensive line is we have to stop being like, you know what, this is good enough. Like we have to actually push it in the offseason, I think, if we want to really go somewhere.
I really do think that Munchak is probably the one coaching move that everybody is just kind of looking at and pinning at. Like it's really just one where they probably could have kept Munchak, but it's interesting when you go across the offensive line. It's interesting that you're looking at almost like an entirely new offensive line. I mean, Boggins put it best. Bowles has regressed, and it's interesting that maybe one of the people that, and granted he's been hit and miss, but it seems like like one of the best offensive linemen at this point in the season is a guy who was on the outs like at the beginning point of the season. That was Dalton Reisner, and kudos to him. And like Reisner's played pretty well, and so I think that for me it's really just about solidifying that right side, and maybe, I hate to say it, but maybe that left side if this trend continues. Like, and what I mean by that is left tackle. Like if this trend continues, they're going to be needing a new left tackle, and so you might be talking about almost like a completely revamped offensive line, to the point where like maybe 4 new starters, 3 new starters.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, are we looking at some potential trades that the Broncos are going to try to swing here with, with maybe running back or bringing in a wide receiver or somebody on the offensive line? I mean, are there legitimate options for trades before the trade deadline's up?
What can we trade, Mike?
That's why I'm asking.
We don't.
If I knew the answer, I wouldn't have asked it.
Why is he? Is this going to become his brand now, where he just yells a bunch?
That's what it is.
Like Morton.
It's not Broncos breakdown. So
my lawn.
Bill Jr.
Even when he's not here, we're making fun of Bill. We're talking about trades.
No. Yeah, I don't really see. I don't know who you're going to trade for. I don't see that. There's nothing. We have nothing to give. I think we're just going to kind of roll with what we got and really interchange at running back. And I don't think they're going to touch the offensive line. I think they're just going to kind of roll with what we got. They haven't been like the most terrible thing that's ever happened. We have been up against some tough pass rushers in the last couple weeks. The Colts will still have some tough pass rushers. The DeForest Buckner is someone you got to watch out for. We still have the Chargers the following week, who obviously have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. So not Joey Bosa. I have Khalil Mack. So, but that Khalil Mack will probably be. I don't know if they'll switch sides for him. Yeah.
Breaking news: Mason Crosby has been traded to the Chargers, so he will be
and become a pass rusher. But yeah, we have a couple tests coming up, but I think that it is serviceable.
I gotta say though, how incredible was it that the Broncos were able to retain Netane Moody now? And I think that's like I think that's
he's not starting.
But if this trend continues again, with even the guard play and stuff like that, I believe he was, for emergency's sake, I believe he was active in this game with the Raiders. But that could be something maybe down the line where, if this trend continues, Moody might actually end up getting playing time.
I think everybody's really excited about the name, but Moody still has not done.
No, he's not. No
anything. Like he's. We've heard how strong he is. That's fantastic. But he's suspect in pass pro. He can get good push on the line, but he's not starting for a reason. If he was Quinn Miners, a Division II guard, Division III guard, came in and he is now starting. Netane Muti would be no different if he was actually like the way we kind of pump him up to be. Like the coaching staff obviously knows something that they're like, he was worth putting on practice squad and risking him getting cut. So,
I'm not disagreeing with you per se. I think that with the overall depth that they have currently right now, it's just like you might end up getting to the point where you might be forced to play Moody if the trend of the struggle bus continues of that offensive line.
Well, and I know we saw a lot of snaps from Glasgow at center in the preseason. Are we any chance we see Glasgow at center? Are we sticking with Cushenberry?
No. Is there Glasgow's on the chopping block? Not right now, but I think like end of the year, I don't see him coming back, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think when Quinn comes back, I think we're gonna realize what an impact he has on this offense. I think it's going to be immediate. That right side is going to be shored up the moment he gets back on the field. Healthy.
Well, and I want to say that Turner would help too, but God knows when he's going to play.
So what is? I thought it was a conditioning thing that he was healthy, but it was getting him back into playing shape, and that was the deal. What are you guys hearing? Nothing.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but it will be a very interesting thing to monitor.
What Boggins? What did you say?
I said it'll be a very interesting thing to monitor. I think it will really come down to coaching staff and if they decide that he is ready to play.
Okay.
It's got to be something that is, mental. Like it's got to be something, there, because there was one point in time where he had, a few days in a row of full practices. So what gives here? I mean, and not that's not to say that when you have full practices that you're an automatic active for Sunday, but it's just like you sometimes in a game week and game practice week, when you're practicing for 2, maybe 3 days of full practice, I would imagine you're going to be active, and you're not. And so there must be something else going on that we don't know about with Billy Turner, for it to certainly continue. And this is actually a significant thing because we're talking about a staff that had familiarity with Turner. Turner chose the Broncos to not only come back to Denver, but also come back and be reunited with Hackett. So it's one of those things like, something else feels like something else is going on with Turner behind closed doors that we don't know about.
Yeah. So let's kind of turn the page and look forward to the Colts on Thursday. How are we seeing this game play out? I mean, there's 2 teams that are at the bottom of the pile of points scored, and it's the Broncos and the Colts. So how are we seeing this game play out?
I think I can promise one thing, that I don't think it's going to be a barn burner. I think it's going to be a lot of running. Jonathan Taylor is supposed to play. The coach thinks he's going to play. He wants to play. Is he going to play? Probably.
He had a high ankle sprain, right?
I don't know.
That's what he was dealing with.
Yeah, it was high ankles.
Yeah, was it? Okay.
Yeah, suck it, Matt Jones.
Yeah, usually ankle sprains are the ones that keep you out for a longer amount of time. So it's weird that they would be super okay with that. So if he's not playing, like, I don't wish ill on anybody, but if he's not playing, that would give us a better shot for sure. I think it's going to be a very. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I really don't. I think it's going to be a tough fight. I'll put my money on the Broncos maybe squeaking it out. Just because I don't think
11-10.
No, 12-11. Work our way up a little bit, at a time. We're slow right now. We're getting our way to being decent.
We got to 23 though. Like, we broke the 16 mark. Can we do it again?
Yeah, maybe. They have a decent secondary now too, so it's like not like Stephon Gilmore out there.
The thing is too is like I'm not necessarily I want to see the wide receivers certainly prove themselves this year for the Colts, but Pierce and Pittman is a decent enough duo, and clearly early on in the season Ryan seems to be pretty comfortable with Pierce. Throwing his way. So you have Pittman to worry about, and then obviously, you have Pierce, and Surtain's probably going to be on, Pittman, for the entire game. And so we probably know that it's probably going to be, the Pierce and maybe Ronald Darby, or, Pierce and, whoever is going to end up being on him. But I think that, it's going to be an interesting show because, you don't want, to say, get carried away to where you have that particular guy beat you. You want to make sure that you have a nice little bounce back game, and hopefully the Broncos defensively, can have a nice little bounce back game. But I don't know. I'm hoping that, they can show out. This is a game where they could. It's also a doldrum Thursday game, where, notoriously Thursday night games have been pretty pathetic, but thankfully we have Amazon Prime, and everybody who has Amazon Prime, glad you get to watch the game. But yeah, I think that they do win. I don't think it's going to be a squeak per se. I think it'll be, one where they win the game. By the way, Boggins, is it a loud squeak? Is it a quiet squeak? What kind of squeak are we talking about?
What type of squeak would you like it to be,
Cameron? A deafening. Is it deafening? Is it deafening?
All right, I'll write
like
that
Cam's
down.
Like describing the hotel room next to him,
Yeah,
that's my
put in his memoirs.
Apartment neighbors.
Well, like as much as I love seeing the Broncos in prime time, like the NFL definitely lost on this one. Matt Ryan versus Russell Wilson. Yeah, that's not working out too well.
I thought you just meant in general, because we've been so bad with how many primetime games we've gotten. It's funny because this is I mean, it's great for me living in Seattle. I've had a lot of Broncos games on. Every single one has been on cable, which has been great. Have they all been enjoyable for me? No, but they're on on my big TV, so that's nice.
NFL just needs to make louder squeaks, and then they'll be good to go.
Yeah,
like at a specific frequency.
that will be our next goal. The over under on number of primetime games next season. Right.
Yeah. So do we see the Broncos pulling out a victory against the Colts on Thursday?
I did.
Not pulling out, but yeah, like a squeaking.
That's where the squeak stopped.
Yeah.
We still talking about Josh Jacobs?
What had happened?
Urban Meyer.
Oh my god.
So I
this just went off the rails.
Yeah. I definitely see
like
I see them. I see them.
I mean, yeah, just keep. I
see them getting a win.
Starting to sound like me.
I think that it will be
Urban Meyer
17-13 Broncos.
Oh, okay.
27-17 Broncos.
2013.
35-7 Broncos.
Whoa.
Wow.
I lied.
Loud
13-10 Broncos.
13-10.
It's a little bit better than 12-11.
12-11. I wanted to see how that worked out.
I like the 12-11. That was good.
Thank you.
4 field goals.
7-11 would be even cooler.
Yeah.
All right, so that we don't start talking about squeaks and holes again. That's gonna about do it for the show. Make sure you follow, subscribe.
Like forever, or just today. Okay,
just for this one. Just for this one. Make sure you follow, subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when we post and when we go live.
Is Karen wearing a turtleneck? I just noticed.
Yes.
Is it mock or is it real?
It's a turtleneck.
Wow.
Huh.
Okay, so on top of tuning in to Cam's Turtleneck, you can also check out all of our other shows. We just had the very first episode of the Cluster Puck podcast. Yeah, I said it right that time. Which goes live every Monday at 8/7/65. Covers all things Colorado Avalanche. Then there's the Wild Wild West on Wednesdays at 7:30, 6:30, 5:30, 4:30. Broncos Breakdown with Bronco Bill Glenn. Stop. Every Friday at 8/7/65.
Him to pull up the brandy snifter.
We also have
turtle enough for the Turtle Club.
We also have the neighborhood of Jeremy Case, which does play-by-play for all Denver Broncos and Colorado Avalanche games. That's all, folks. We love you, Broncos country. Go
Cam's
Broncos.
had it up to here with the Broncos losses.
Jeez. I'm just done.